right, gang, video number 2 in greatly improving the quality of your healthiness of your diet. In the last video, I talked about how the whole point of a healthy diet is satisfaction and fulfillment. That's the reason why you have your diet, is the better your diet is, the less stress you should have in your life. And we also talked about the 4 primal physiological appetites: hunger, the need for nutrition, taste, palatability, and the sensory aspects of food, and of course your energy level. Got to honor and respect all 4 of those. Today we're talking more about the emotional and psychological aspects, the appetites that we need to fulfill. Now, this is one of those videos that may ruffle a few feathers because there's a lot of messages out there that we think that, okay, food, yeah, physiological satisfaction and appetites, good, but emotional and mental and psychological? No. That's not what food is for. If you're bored, food shouldn't be what you're going towards. Oh, no. If you're stressed, you shouldn't be looking at the chocolate cupcakes in that cover. That's not what food is for. Well, I'm going to counteract this a little bit, because number 1, we have emotional appetites. They need to be met, and food always will and should be used as a way to do this. And it is effective. That's why people turn to it. If it wasn't effective to deal with stress, then we wouldn't do it. The only problem is it's not optimal, as I'll get into in a minute here. But the first thing we've got to recognize is that this idea of mental diet and an emotional diet and so forth, we've got to satisfy these things. And a lot of times we get this idea of emotional eating. Emotional eating being a very bad thing. But the fact of the matter is there's no such thing as non-emotional eating. There's no such thing as logic emotional eating. Because every choice we make as human beings has an emotional foundation to it. Your desire to watch this video was done for emotional reasons. My desire to make the video is emotionally based. You can't not eat emotionally. The fact is, though, when we refer to emotional eating, we're usually talking about negative emotional eating. But you can do just as much as positive emotional eating. The person who's making very healthy choices to fulfill all 4 of the primal appetites is doing it for positive emotional reasons. But the person who is eating very unhealthy is doing it for negative ones. But it's still emotional. So we need to recognize that there are positive emotions at stake, and we need to honor those. What are we eating for? And again, just simply flipping the switch and saying, I'm eating for my satisfaction, fulfillment, to take care of myself, that's more of a positive emotional framework, rather than saying, I don't deserve that chocolate bar because I didn't work out, and I'm guilty about doing this, so I can't eat what I really want to eat. That's negative emotional eating. Now, we talk about coping foods or comfort foods, okay? And this is another thing that gets dragged through the mud. The idea of that food shouldn't be used as a coping mechanism, that you shouldn't be eating food because you're stressed or bored or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, food always is and always will be used as a coping mechanism. And I would even argue that it should be a coping mechanism in many ways, shape, or form. To take food out of the equation and try and prevent it from being something that you use to cope with stress or negative emotions, or eating because of good things, like you're celebrating a raise or whatever. This is literally to try and prevent food from doing what it should do in your life. Food is and will be a coping mechanism in your life, and if you know how to use it well, it can be very healthy as a coping mechanism. The other thing to consider too is that when we use food as a coping mechanism, at least it's something. If you try and get it out, if I said, oh, you eat chocolate when you're stressed, okay, no more chocolate for you. We have bad habits for good reasons. So even if chocolate bar a day because you're stressed may not be the best thing for you, at least it's doing something to remove some stress from your life. If we got rid of that, the stress just builds up. And of course, as I explain in my book, Fitness Independence, we all have a finite capacity for stress, but the universe has an infinite ability to load stress on us. So eventually we break. So even if we have a coping food, we need it there and it's doing something for us. Now here's the better way to go about it that I recommend you have. Add positive things into your life. So food is a coping mechanism to deal with stress and all these sorts of things. Nothing wrong with that. The problem that comes up that gets us into trouble is the fact of when food is the only coping mechanism that we have, or the primary coping mechanism. So every time you're stressed, you reach for the chocolate bars. Every time you're bored or nervous or anxious or whatnot, you reach for food. There's nothing wrong with that unless it's the only thing that you're always doing. Then it becomes a problem. But when it happens as something you do once in a while, as one of many coping mechanisms you have, it's no big deal. I do it, everybody does it. Everybody will always use food as a coping mechanism, as they should. It just shouldn't be the only one. So other things to add into your life for when you're stressed or bored or anxious or whatnot, other hobbies, social interactions, other things that you can do. So if you're stressed out at work, instead of going to the vending machine, maybe take a 5-minute Tetris break and play Tetris, or watch some video on YouTube of your favorite comedian, or just get out the building. Just leave the building, walk around the park a little bit, maybe even shout into it like, that son of a bitch, burying that county, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you gotta do to cope, do that instead. And use other mechanisms. Take on different hobbies. Get into like building, I don't know, model ships in a bottle or something. Learn to play another guitar. A lot of times when people have this negative emotional eating and too much of the comfort food, it's not that that's the problem. It's just that there's nothing else going on. So expand your life. Expand what you're doing to cope with emotionally, to satisfy your mental and emotional appetites, and make food just one of the many things. So that way you can satisfy the appetites greater, which is the healthiest thing to do, and food becomes more of a minor role in this satisfaction of the mental and psychological appetites rather than a major role. So that's my recommendation to you. Let me know your questions down below. Be fit, live free.